leave it to divine serendipity and close your eyes. Up to you.
I did. I got humanism,
Mm.
agnosticism,
Ah,
the 76.
right. Okay, well, we'll start with that one first then. Yes, these orange boxes, humanism, they're important because, many people on the planet aren't that interested in religions. They feel humanity has to move beyond the narrow confines of theology and religious approaches to life. There are many people in Israel that would define themselves as humanists that aren't particularly, they don't follow Judaism in a strict sense. There are many people in the Arab world, many Palestinians I've met that are humanists and don't follow strict Islam or Christianity. And there are many Christians also that would say they're more humanistic than sort of identifying with a very narrow literalist reading of the Bible. So humanism is important, and it's bound up with European, I think, but also other regions of the world. I've been enjoying the telling of the Medici story. There's a wonderful series of films recorded about the Medici family in Florence, who sponsored the Academy. Lorenzo the Magnificent sponsored the Academy in Florence, and that's where they translated the Hermetic texts from Greek into Latin, and that spread throughout Europe. And this really sponsored the idea that we humans have the right to knowledge. A humanist takes the view that we're not miserable worms that should just, live in fear and terror, and that God is all there omnipotent and we have to do what the holy texts say. No, we have intellect, we have hearts, we have minds that can be educated. So the humanists of the Italian Renaissance brought back the knowledge of the ancient languages and literatures of Latin and Greek and spread it through the schools of Europe, through Italy, and then this spread to England in the grammar school system where people learned Latin and Greek again. And they could access Cicero and Virgil and Homer, and it was like a light was turned on, and especially when they could also read the Hermetic texts and realise the ancient Egyptian wisdom. And I think the humanist position is that human beings, we have a duty of knowledge, we have a right and a duty to learn, to become educated. On the matter of the absolute final existence of God or the gods, the agnostic position is actually we can't know for sure the absolute truth behind the nature of the deities. Therefore, let us be humble and adopt a maybe position. And that's the position actually the Jains had reached 2,500 years before in India. Their teachers, Mahavira, said, the gods, yes, they may exist, but do they exist forever? Are they immortal as in like all eternity? Or are they just beings on a different evolutionary timescale? And they may exist for tens of thousands of years in disembodied form. Maybe they travel around different planets. We don't know is the truth of the matter. So I would say a healthy humanistic agnosticism should be at the basis of all of our philosophical discussions. I think if you read Plato's work, Socrates takes that position. He wants to question and discuss the nature of the gods. And although he was called a heretic for that by his city council, humanity has judged him to be a wise person for raising those questions, and it's to our mutual enlightenment that people question. The same thing happened in China with Confucius and the intellectual traditions of China, and also in Japan. There was a humanism in Japan which learned from Confucianism to question the Shinto absolutisms and to look critically at the gods and say, what are they really? And so in Europe we have, I would say, Jung's ideas as a form of humanism, in that he is trying to understand the inner workings of the psyche. What are the archetypes that kind of propel us to do certain deeds? Where are they from? How do they form? All these are really profound questions. So anyway, and in relation to the Middle East, it would be really healthy if the Jewish, Muslim and Christian populations of the Middle East adopted humanism, in my opinion, and a certain degree of agnosticism, because then they could discuss, if this table were in their schools throughout the entire region, we could have some intelligent, serious, profound discussions and share each other's esoteric teachings. And it's interesting that most of the greatest philosophers of Islam, Judaism, Christianity have all ended up being some kind of humanist. If you look at the life of the great Islamic philosophers, they wanted to study Plato and Aristotle and skepticism and Socratic thought, and they said it's not against the Quran, which indeed it's not, because the Quran asks us to critically examine everything, to think. So, and it's very much in the Jewish mindset, because the student studying the Torah has to question everything, has to understand, has to really, penetrate to the inner meaning of these texts. And if you study the Kabbalah, you realise there are levels and layers behind it. And as for Christ, well, he taught Socratically. He asked questions. He got his disciples to play the "Who am I" game, which is reported in all the different Gospels. He'd go round the group and say, "Who do you think I am?" And they'd all have their go. Okay, that's that one. So what are we going to do with the next choice?
49, Gnostic Christianism.
49, the Christian Gnostics. Oh, right. Well, that's interesting, because paradoxically we have humanist agnosticism, which was coined against Gnosticism, meaning I don't know. Agnosis is Greek for I don't know, or lack of knowledge, whereas Gnostic is someone who does know. The Christian Gnostics, and there are many different kinds of Christian Gnostics. It seems the very first students of Jesus would have been what we call Gnostics, I suspect. And in my card of Jesus, I've got what I call the after party of the Last Supper. So everyone's gone to bed, Peter and everyone, except John, Mary Magdalene and Thomas are staying up with Jesus for the after party. And those are the more Gnostic disciples of Jesus, because I think, like with all teachers and teachings, some students really get it and they really deeply understand. Other students sort of get it a bit, but only, insofar as it's, in fashion or whatever. And other people don't really understand at all. So I think Christ had the same thing. I think the Gnostic disciples are the ones that really got it. And fortunately, we've got the Gospel of Thomas, we've got the Gospel of Mary Magdalene fragments, we've got other Gnostic teachers. And then there are Gnostic bits in the other four Gospels. Matthew is full of Gnostic stuff. John is absolutely full of it. Mark has some, and Luke also. So, I think the idea of knowledge is really sacred. This goes back to my earlier theme that we humans have a duty to use our minds, our intellects, our hearts, and to think our way out of these complex interfaith quarrels that we're having in the Middle East and elsewhere. We've got into these messes and we can get out of them. We need to put our Gnostic thinking caps on, and we can surely do better than this. 26,000 women and children, largely, and people have been killed in the last few months. I'm shocked by this. If I was Jewish, I'd be organising meetings in the Knesset, protesting, working with decent MPs, of which there are many in Israel. I've been to the Knesset. I know the chap who was the future's ombudsman for the Knesset in Israel. His duty, Judge Shlomo Soham, was to look at how the impact of legislation will be in the long-term future of the country, and to then give an opinion as to whether this legislation is good or not. We need to bring him or people like him back into the Knesset to look at policies, not just legislation. Is the policy of Netanyahu good for the long-term future of Israel? I would say no. It's causing tremendous friction with the international community. It's causing friction with its neighbouring countries. It's causing vast suffering and friction with the Palestinian community. you know, who have rights in international law and in moral law. So I think that surely we can do better than that. We can use our intellectual capacities. What Judge Shlomo Soham talks about is future intelligence. We have to think through what's going to happen in the future if we do certain actions. That's the basis of all ethics. And I think it's time to do some basic ethics again about this situation that's been going on in Israel, Palestine, and neighbouring countries. So far from extending the conflict, as some hawks are saying, oh, let's go and, you know, extend it and nuke Iran and let's all get involved in extending it. No, this is just madness. What we should be doing is restraining and ending the violence that's happened. We need a ceasefire that will endure, and we need peace-building measures to be put in place. Gnostic peace-building measures, which draw on the spiritual intelligence of the people of the region. You see, my problem with conventional diplomacy, I mean, I studied a course on the history of diplomacy at the London School of Economics when I did my history degree, 1815 to 1954. It was a great course taught by some of the world's leading historians in diplomatic history. But diplomats don't address the Gnostic side of our nature and our conflicts. And now we have to upgrade the way that our diplomacy is done. We have to address our metaphysical, spiritual, Gnostic conflicts and resolve them by intelligent measures. You know, peacemaking in a new guise. And that was the point of my doctoral thesis, which I began under a professor at the London School of Economics, actually. So yes, Gnostic Christianity, very important part of the mix of healing here. And if you listen to my commentary on the Quran, by the way, you'll learn that my reading of the very early birth of Islam, the circle around Khadija in Mecca, who Muhammad married, she was already a kind of Gnostic Christian when she met Muhammad. This is why the Quran is so full of references to Mary, to Jesus, and you know, actually Islam is a form of Gnostic Christianity that was spun out of the currents in the desert around Arabia and Mecca. And these are just, you know, facts which can be proved empirically by in-depth religious research, such as I've done. And therefore, the healing is possible and long overdue. Okay, thank you very much. Those two are fascinating and interestingly mirror each other. We need both. It's like a car needs, you know, two sets of wheels to function. Right, let's end with our rune of the evening. And let's see, ladies first, choose a rune, maybe one different from previous times. We'll see what comes up. The runes, of course, the magical alphabet of the Norse people. We won't have that because we had that last time.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Right, thank you for that. Yes. Okay, you've got that. Oh, right, excellent. Okay. So these are two runes. Just going to find the right part of the book to really give a proper explanation. Yes. Okay, so this rune is B, the letter B, bait, or Berkana in the Norse rune. So in this book I've interpreted it from the Semitic alphabet, the Hebrew, which is bait, which stands for house, but also Berkana, which is the rune for the letter B in the Norse. I'm arguing that the Kabbalah of the Semitic, Hamito-Semitic people, and the runes of the Nordic people go back to the same common root. I'm not the first person in the world to have said that, but I think I've done more research on it than most people, perhaps more than anyone. the librarian of Queen Christina of Sweden said the same thing back in the days of Descartes. And it really is just common sense that these runic sound associations with cosmic forces must go back to common prehistoric shamanic insights that were going on among the ancestral tribes of the Indo-Europeans and the Hamito-Semitic people. So what does B stand for? B is a wonderful sound. I love B. We use it for existence. It has a strong sound. It means a house, a home. It stands for creativity, beginnings. Bereshith is the first word in the Bible. And in the Zohar, which is a commentary on the first books of the Bible, pages are given over just to the meaning of that one word, Bereshith, in the beginning. What is the in the beginning? The beginning is the source point. It's what the Greek philosophers are looking for. They call it the arche. The B is the beginning. It's the second letter, but it's the first substantial letter of the alphabet. R is the vowel. It doesn't really count as a letter. It's It's everythingness, air. But B is when you, I'm alive, I'm a being, I'm a human being. You come into a house, a home, which is the body, right? So B is used for all these terms. Beriach is creation. It also in Bakana, in the letter B in the Norse rune, it stands for the breasts, the female sexuality, fruitfulness, and we use B for the breast, which is how we come into embodiment. We're suckled at the breast. It's what makes us mammals. It's because our females have breasts that makes us mammals and have given us success as an animal species. So yes, in Arabic it's important. Baraka is grace that is transmitted by a Sufi saint to disciples. It's an energy that we can draw on. The Al-Batin is a name of God, Allah, the hidden one. Al-Batin is the most esoteric meanings. I've tried to do this in my commentary on the Quran, give the Batin mysteries. Al-Bari is the maker, another name for God, the creator. And Al-Basir, the seer. These are all B sounds in Arabic. So it's a very important letter, and it has, in terms of how we can build, I would say its function in peace building is how we can build a common home for humanity. Look at 80% of the homes of Gaza have been destroyed. This is shocking. They need to be rebuilt. The tunnels should be, blocked up. The Hamas people need to stop stockpiling weapons. There has to be a declaration of non-violence between Israel and Palestine. I've been calling this for over 10 years. Only non-violence can rebuild this shattered country, and Hamas chose the path of violence foolishly. They started by attacking the Palestinian Liberation government that was there with Yasser Arafat, using violence to do so, and that was wrong. They've got to unpledge their violence path, and I'd be happy to talk to any Hamas intellectuals that think otherwise, because I can persuade them that no, non-violence is the only way they're going to get a Palestinian state. I've been saying this for over a decade since I visited and met local people. As Martin Luther King and Gandhi pointed out, non-violence is the only power that can be creative, and B is the creative energy that we need to unlock. Well, only non-violence can do it. Another word, Bashara, means good news, and it's a Sufi centre in Scotland where I've spoken. It's called the Bashara Institute. My dear friends up there who are dedicated to the life and works of Ibn Arabi, a great Sufi, in former generations. So yes, let's energise the B force, if you want, for this work of building a home for our common humanity, for people of all cultures and religions throughout the Middle East. It is our home as humanity. This is my vision for Jerusalem. It would be a internationally dedicated peace city of non-violence. I'd like the Golden Gate to be opened when you come up onto Temple Mount. Pilgrims of peace from all over the world could go there, whatever their religion, but they would have to swear an oath of non-violence. There should be no weapons on the Temple Mount, and I believe that would be a way to get this B force properly grounded. And of course, it's there in the word Buddha, which means our cosmic intellect. Your true nature is your Buddha nature. Everything else passes. Your physical body will go, your emotional body will change and go, but your Buddha nature is immortal. And it's time we humans started realizing that and coming from that place. Then we're fit to live and dwell on this beautiful planet. Beauty is another B word. So this is a wonderful letter, and if you want to know more about the Kabbalah rune of Beit or Bakana, then please look in the book of the Kabbalah runes, I did a lot of research on this. Okay, then we have another amazing rune, which is Jera, the letter J, or sometimes transliterated as Y, and it stands for time and the year. It's in our English word year. And these shapes, they're like a spiralling round showing time. So it's like a kind of Catherine wheel going back to the Elohim card. It's like the passage of time that the Elohim create through their transformations and changes. So Yera is, if you think about it, the whole year is the different passages of different signs astrologically and in terms of weather. We're just coming up to Imbolc here in France, which is the Druid celebration of spring and new life, and it's getting lighter. And this is a beautiful time of year. So Jira represents time in a runic reading. And so what it's really saying is that to get to this rehabilitation of Gaza, to rebuild, and by the way, build is another B word, to rebuild the houses and the infrastructure of Gaza and of Israel, because they've suffered too because of this crazy war. A lot of people have had to leave their homes. Some were already attacked by Hamas. What I want is a treaty of non-violence between all parties and putting down of the weapons, and then over time the rebuilding can come when we need all fully to honour the Elohim again, whatever our particular culture or religion, and allow that healing to come. Doctors know that healing comes with time. I worked in hospitals for years, and I am a doctor of planetary medicine, and I would say that this has been such a trauma for the world, individually and collectively. It's been an utter trauma for thousands and thousands of people in Gaza and Israel, little children crying, orphaned. This is a terrible trauma. It's going to take years to recover from this, but we have to start that recovery now. We can't let it go on with yet more bombing. All parties have to stop their violence and trust to the cosmic intelligence that is within us all to find a solution here. The word Jira is also there in words like yoga, which means to join, the yoni, which is the sacred vessel, how we humans come into the world, and it's worshipped in Hindu and Buddhist iconography. It's there also in Yggdrasil, which is the cosmic tree of all galactic being, which Odin, the master of the runes, can navigate in a split second because he can move faster than time. And it's there obviously in our modern word join, to join something, is the same root as yoga, which means to join the individual with the cosmic. So we've got to become better yogis, I would say, all of us. We're useless at the moment. This planet is really like a beginner's planet. we've got to really up our game and become proficient yogis at joining each other and all the different parts of ourselves into a harmony. Join the Muslim bit of yourself to the Christian bit of yourself, to the Jewish bit of yourself, to the Hindu, the pagan, the Druid. They're all parts of the one cosmic tree, Yggdrasil. And we're all joined anyway at the cosmic mind level. So, so I think these runes are pretty magical, actually. I really salute you for bringing them up. And thank you for... Okay, any questions here before we finish? Yeah.
Yes, I was just laughing because when you say we are beginners,
Yeah.
it's also the B sound.
Correct.
Isn't it marvelous to be beginners?
I like that question. Yes, no, thank you. Bereshith is beginning in Hebrew, beginning in English is B. Yeah, we are just at the beginning of things. It is marvellous, and in Zen we call it the beginner's mind. You know, enlightenment is to really be in the place of the beginner's mind, because we're all beginners on this planet. You may be a god listening, you may be a amazing yogi who's done millions of years of study, but here on this planet we're all equal, we're all beginners, and we really need to focus on solving these violent conflicts for the sake of the poor children and their mothers. Yeah, good question. Beginner's mind is the answer. Okay, any others?
Yes, well, I have an observation, really. Beginning with the Elohim and how they're almost the painters of our experience here,
Yeah.
and how Christ is almost a combination of all of the energies that are in conflict at the moment, and how his message was love, and for me it's a unification of our higher self into our elemental earthly selves, and how we bring that into our hearts. Like, that is what the heart chakra looks like, with the two triangles coming together in your heart. And I feel like that is definitely the energy of what we need now for humanity. And then we go to the B, and it's also the breath, and it's how we choose to shape that sound and how we choose to bring that breath into our birthing of our creation, and what we choose to do with our time here. So that to me was kind of the overarching message of what's being shown to us. Is it's about how we choose to bring ourselves into this moment, into this world. And if we come from our hearts with our message of love and our truth and our breath, it brings that energy into being, then hopefully this purification, this energy upshift that's happening can be diffused into love again. But we all need to be tuning into that space, into that heart space, regardless of which light you believe in. The light is one, we're all there.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, that was beautifully put. Thank you so much. That was summing up my talk in a sense.
Lovely.
And just to point out about the heart, that is the flag of Israel, which is the two triangles intersecting.
Yes.
And it's the same as the heart, yantra in the Hindu and Buddhist traditions. And that's what Israel's supposed to represent, the heart chakra of the planet. Jerusalem is supposed to be that place where heaven and earth meet, where all these contrary forces are reconciled and healed through love. That surely was what Christ was teaching and why he was there. Some people talk about, well, all these evangelical Christians, so-called, who seem to have lost the plot. Mr. Carter says their movement seems to have been hijacked by people that are teaching the opposite of love. But the real evangelicals of the planet should realise that, that's the true work that Christ would want us to be doing now, which is to manifest that healing love energy, and everywhere on the planet, not just in the Middle East or in Jerusalem, but in what St. John calls the New Jerusalem, which is everywhere, which is London or Paris or New York. It's a state of being. And that openness to birth through breath, as you rightly say, is it's the task we've got ahead of us here. Yes, so thank you. Let's. I hope this is of some value anyway. Our little sharings in the philosophy club. I love philosophy. It's so profound. The more you go into it, the more there is to swim in. So yes, do study. In these little meetings, we can only look at a few of the things, but if you acquire the Kabbalah runes and the Tarot of the Gods, you can work on your own castings. And do get in touch with me if you'd like more details or want to know more about, how it all came together. But yes, and let's close with a little prayer for our dear friends in the Middle East, whether Christian or Muslim or Jewish or humanist or secular, and let's just pray that they all find a way to make the conversations they're having more peaceful. Yes, I had a dear friend called Brian Vision-Dance who was Jewish. He was a Jewish hippie. I met him through my work for Stonehenge. He was a bit of a druid and he had long grey hair. He would meet us all on the solstice night on the 21st of June every year, handing out leaflets about how Stonehenge represents this, a very important acupuncture point on the planet. He thought that there are certain magical points on the planet which he called social acupuncture points, and that we can collectively, if we redeem their energy, we can do some collective planetary healing. I agreed with him, and we were very close friends, and we used to have our Truth and Reconciliation commissions for Stonehenge there, with him as our press officer. Unfortunately, he died, and I went to Jerusalem and I put a little thing in the Wailing Wall, and a prayer for him to be allowed into heaven. He was a good man, although not, sort of orthodox Jewish, but he had the spirit of the real thing, in my opinion. And he used to give out leaflets saying, "There's nothing wrong with the world. We're just having a weird conversation," which is a way of putting it, because it's our words that create our reality. And people like Netanyahu are having a very weird conversation. They're just full of hate speech and violence, and he has been for years. It's not something new, and I could see when he was addressing the UN General Assembly over the last few years, he comes in there determined to basically destroy the building. He'd like to, he really hates the UN. Well, I think he's just having a very weird conversation, and Hamas have been having a weird conversation too, like they want to destroy Israel. I've said to my Palestinian friends, that's not going to happen. You have to use non-violence to get the two peoples living in harmony here. So yes, in honour of Brian Vision-Dance, let's change the conversation on the planet and get it moving in the peace direction. So thank you. Thank you for being.